Welcome everyone to another episode of the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Tameka Ellington. For those of you that don't know me, I'm an educator, speaker, author, and a lover of all things Black culture. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing Black women in leadership, the challenges and the triumphs. When I was serving as an assistant dean at the College of the Arts for Kent State University, I had a really difficult time seeing things that were of injustice happening and not being able to do anything about it. Or if I could do something about it, having to go through the back door to do it. It's a challenge, especially for someone like myself who stands for the people and seeks justice first and foremost. The bureaucracy that you deal with as a leader can swallow you up at times. And if you're not careful, it will, I'm sorry. I'm a mom too. I forgot to say that. I'm a mother and I have little boys who sometimes disrupt me. But as a professor and assistant dean at Kent State University, it was important for me to show up as my authentic self. And each day, the way that I knew I was successful was by being able to show up and be the same way with one person as I was with somebody else. And that's what leaders do. Our next guest is an incredible woman in leadership and has had the honor of sitting on executive boards for the NAACP for the past 10 years. I'm speaking about none other than President Judi Hill. Hello, President Hill.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm super excited to talk to you. I have lots of questions to ask because I still consider myself a woman in training, and to be able to learn from someone like you, I'm really excited about that.
Well, I'm honored to be invited to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to read your bio so everyone can learn a little bit more about you and the work that you've been doing. Judi Hill is a native of Oberlin, Ohio, a graduate of University of Akron and Youngstown State University. Professionally, she's worked for Akron Public Schools for 30 plus years teaching, designing curriculum, and serving as an administrator. As a retiree, she's actively involved in the community and serves on a variety of committees and boards. She's currently the president of the Akron NAACP, an active member of the Board of Leadership Akron, the Akron Christ Child Society, the Towpath Credit Union. She serves on the steering committee of the City of Akron's Racial Equity and Social Justice Task Force and is a member of the Dr. Shirla R. McLean Gallery of Akron's Black History. She is a Sunday school teacher at Arlington Church of God and a guardian litem for abused and neglected children in Summit County. She has received many honors and awards, including the University of Akron Alumni Award, the Akron Urban League Pioneer Award, Women of Achievement Award, and a finalist for the Northeast Ohio Athena International Leadership Award. Judi Hill enjoys traveling, reading, and family fun. She feels her greatest honor and accomplishments are being a grandmother of 9, a mother of 4, and wife to Dr. Gregory Hill. Let's welcome President Hill. Thank you so much again. This woman, you know what? When I was reading your bio, I was like, man, she's more busy now than she was when she was working.
That's not true. That's not true. Because when you're working, other people decide what you do.
That is true. Now, that is true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I decide what's important to me.
Yes. So let's just say this. You're involved in more things than you were when you were working.
Well, yes.
Which is amazing. And I love that because a lot of times when people retire, they retire and they don't really do much. They don't put in, they don't do any service work or whatever. And you have your hand in so many different things. I would love to learn more about the African American Black History Gallery. I would love to learn more about that. I'm a curator and artist myself. And so anytime I can get connected with, other entities like such as that, I'm excited about it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
talk to you after the show.
Please do. Please do. And so let's jump right on into the interview. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and what were some critical times in your life that led you to a career in education?
Oh, that's an easy one. Well, growing up in Oberlin, Ohio, my sister, my older sister will tell you that I have always been a teacher, that I was always teaching my siblings or teaching dolls or teaching someone in the neighborhood about whatever. But I will tell you that I've always had an interest in teaching someone. But one of the things I have to admit, really that guided me towards teaching. I had a younger brother who, during that time period, he had a learning disability, and the school system didn't have programming at the time to support his disability. However, in high school, they said that if he was tutored or worked during the summer so that he could keep up, they would make sure that he academically would get what he needed during the school year, and he would be able to graduate on time. I made sure that during the summer he was tutored, and that tutor happened to be me. And he and I sat down every day
Wow.
summer, and we made sure that he graduated on time with his class.
Wow.
That pushed me definitely into making sure I went into education.
Wow. Wow. And that's a beautiful thing to hear, a big sister doing that for her brother. It's wonderful to know that you were able to be a start in the success that he was able to have. And then I'm sure after he graduated from high school was able to go on and do wonderful things. But the fact that the first support, came from his family, is amazing. It's a blessing. It really is,
No,
because so many children don't have that.
right. And it was difficult at first, but it made us definitely close, and we're still close to this day. Believe me, there were a lot of fights in this process.
Oh, I'm sure.
It,
Yeah.
it definitely made us closer, and it made me realize too the challenges that people go through. And that's why to this day I'm still an advocate for those who need that kind of support to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So how did you make the shift from education into social and political leadership? What was that shift like?
It really wasn't a shift. I mean, you have to remember, I grew up in Oberlin, Ohio, and I don't know if you know anything about Oberlin, but Oberlin was a major stop on the Underground Railroad. It was one of the first to allow women and African Americans to get an education, and so it was a part of who I was. Advocacy in Oberlin was the thing. And so I grew up in that era. I grew up with that knowledge. um, I learned about oh gee, just all of it while I was in Oberlin. And so coming to Akron, Ohio, I thought everybody coming from a college town, moving into a college setting, everybody really had that advocate attitude. I learned very early on that it was not true.
Yeah.
So that was hard for me in the beginning.
Hmm.
But I quickly, learned and got involved with organizations like Black United Students and things like that.
Yeah.
I didn't talk like everybody else. So that was an adjustment. But
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
than that,
Yeah.
I quickly learned that advocacy takes on a different look depending on where you are and how you interact. But the key is you get involved, you fit in where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important. I hope everybody heard that advocacy looks different depending on where you are and who you're serving.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. What would you say your leadership style is? I know, lots of people, there's lots of different types of leadership styles. And what would you say your leadership style is?
There's no question I'm a servant leader. I I typically, and people don't like to believe this, I like to sit back and work behind the scenes. When I was in Akron Public Schools, I like being number two and number three and make sure it gets done. But believe me, if there's nobody in there leading the ship, I'll jump in and lead. But if
Mhm.
I don't have to, I like being able to make sure that all the pieces and parts fit together and it moves and moves smoothly.
Yeah.
So servant leadership is really my strength.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like that's just a part of your personality, or how did you come to that, or how did you evolve into that when you first became a leader? Did you realize that that's who you were?
Well, I'm from a family of seven, and
Oh,
guess what?
wow. Okay. Okay.
Being a middle child, that's our role. We make things work. We do. We make it work.
Yeah,
When you're caught in the middle, you can't tell everybody what to do because the older people, that's what they do. But
yeah,
the younger ones, you bring them along and help them to make sure that everything moves smoothly. And I still do that to this day in our family.
that's awesome. And so Black women many times in leadership roles deal with feeling silenced or feeling invisible, or in other words, sometimes hyper visible, and being labeled as an angry Black woman. Can you give an example if you've dealt with any of these situations where you felt like you were silenced or felt like you were hyper visible in a space?
Jeez. So often we are the only one in the room.
Absolutely.
So being the only one in the room, it's very frustrating because then you have to speak for everyone.
Yeah.
You have to speak for every Black person. You have to speak for every Black woman, and that's very frustrating. And it's hard for people to understand that you can't do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and because I'm an educator and I taught elementary students, I tend to bring people to that level, and I help them. I use examples from when they were in school. Um, you know, I'll use an example like, when you did XYZ, well, here's a perfect one. We don't all wear the same clothing, right? Even though we're all white people or all Black people, we don't wear the same clothing. That's a perfect example. We don't all drive the same cars. They make different models for a reason, right? And so I have to go to that kind of simplicity to help people understand we don't do it the same way. Uh,
Hmm.
we don't eat the same greens. Some people like greens, some don't. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and I hate to do it, but I have to do that to help them understand. Um, and all Black people don't think the same way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
really think we do. What
They
do
do.
you think they want? They who?
Mhm.
And so but you have to do it in a way that is palatable and in a way that people can hear you. And the angry Black woman, I hate to say it, sometimes I have to come across, I have to be that girl. I have to do that sometimes. And there are times that they push you to a point
Mhm.
where you unfortunately are that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are opportunities, and I call them opportunities, where we have to allow them to be the person that is angry.
Mm.
I know that sounds weird, but
Wow.
there are times we have to allow them to be angry and let the room see what it does. Because
Wow.
they're the angry individual and we are the ones that are being attacked, then the others in the room can see what it looks like.
Wow. Now, you said two different things that I want to talk about. Palatable,
Mhm,
making yourself palatable.
mhm.
I want to definitely talk about that, and then this whole scenario about switching, like reversing the role and making them angry. Like, can you please expound on that?
Sure. So there are situations where there are conversations that have occurred, and clearly, uh, the individuals don't like the way the conversations are going. And I've seen this happen in politics lately on TV. They don't like the way the conversations are going. And I tell people this all the time: allow the person to dig their own hole.
Yeah.
Let them dig it.
Yeah.
You can say a little word here or there and allow them to just dig the hole.
Yeah.
Or you know it, they have gotten so angry. They're creating a situation, and it's like, oh, great, I don't have to say anything. And then the rest of the individuals that are a part of the conversation will ask a question or say something, and the person escalates.
Yeah.
In their escalation, they are showing their true colors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've seen that in some situations. Oh gosh, I'll never forget. We had a superintendent one time who happened to be a white male. We were talking about a very contentious change in education that we wanted to create in the Akron Public Schools. And we were having a dialogue, and we were answering questions. I was one of the individuals answering questions. And someone answered a question, another person did. And as we were answering questions, it just wasn't going the way he wanted. He just kept getting angrier, and he said something, what about this? And what about that? And then he said he made a statement, and he said another statement, and everybody in the room got quiet because it showed his prejudice.
Wow.
And we didn't have to say anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned to just kind of like put my pencil down and my face will then change. I taught elementary, and I used my face a lot to help young people understand what I needed them to do.
Yeah.
That's why I can't play poker. My husband will tell you, I can't play poker. I had staff members who would say, we love sitting in a meeting with you because all we have to do is look at your face, because we can tell. But I would just put my, whatever I had in my hands, I would put them down, and I would just look at them. And I look sad, because it makes me sad that people really feel that way. I have hope. I always have hope for that we are further along in society than we really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so what you just described too, one of the things that is really important to talk about with women leaders, with any leader really, is this whole idea of communication and body language. So that's what you were explaining. Your body language, instead of you having to say anything, your body would say everything that you wanted it to say.
Correct.
Now, for me, I grew up in the inner city of Cleveland, and grew up in the quote unquote ghetto. And so one of the things that was difficult for me when I got into professional spaces was for me to turn that off. That was really difficult at first, for me to taper that back. I got really good at it, as I continued on in my career. And so when I would be in those meetings and somebody would just say something absolutely ridiculous, I used to like my body language would just say everything.
Right.
Now, according to your husband, I would be the best poker face, because I learned how to just sit back and just listen and like you said, let them dig their own hole. Absolutely. Wow. So this is one question that I threw in because I just learned this yesterday. I was watching a video. A friend of mine was telling me, my friend from Ghana was telling me that someone that is a friend of theirs who was still in Ghana was talking about Vladimir Putin, now putting out this information about the fact that the Russians have finally been honest about the race of biblical figures, including Jesus and Mary. And so they have this exhibition up right now. They have a book that they've put together. I guess the book was in existence a long time ago, but it was just hidden. And so my question for you is, now that these kinds of things are becoming unearthed, what do you believe will happen? Because for so long, uh, they tried to push these things down and away, but now they're coming back up. What do you think this is going to do to our society? Uh-oh, Judi. Oh, everyone, I think Judi, we lost her. Maybe her phone went out or something like that. I hope that we are able to bring
You
her
hear
back.
me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you and see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I
Mhm.
can't hear you, but I'll fix it. Somebody tried to call and I think I lost my
Ah,
audio.
okay.
We
Okay.
had pictures up, and in our home, we had Jesus, Dr. Martin Luther King, and uh, uh, President Kennedy or somebody. Jesus always had that look of African American features, right?
Mhm.
We had those old Bibles. He always had features of African American. But the older I got, the whiter he got. Um, our Bible, and I might even still have my mother's, he was darker skinned.
Wow.
But the older I got, the whiter he got.
Wow.
So I've always wondered what in the world was going on. Um, I don't know. It just so and then as you read and they talk about his hair of wool, doggone well he wasn't a white guy.
Right.
So it's just interesting as we have these conversations that the reality of everything starts to come about. But we also have to know where we live. We
Yeah,
live in the European culture. And
absolutely.
so, of course, their view is always going to be of what he looks like. I grew up in Oberlin, and I think our conversations were different. Um, I also, being from Oberlin College background, we had more of an honest conversation. Um, Growing up in the Black Panther movement, we saw more, it was just different.
Mhm.
So I saw things differently,
Yeah.
uh, but you're absolutely correct. Those images were always of, the longer hair. And his hair got longer too. That was the other thing I noticed. Um, so it's always been interesting. Now, in order for me to hear your questions, I have to figure out what happened
Okay.
when that person tried to come on. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Done.
Okay. So maybe, yeah, that was probably the best thing for her to go out, and hopefully she'll come back in. Technical difficulties, that's what we have sometimes when we're using technology. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for Judi to come back on, one thing that I wanted to just talk about is an article that I had the opportunity to read as I was preparing for this episode. As a scholar and educator, it's always important for me to bring something tangible that my listeners can take away. It's important for me as an educator and as a scholar that I give people a reference of where some of these concepts come from, because these don't just come from Dr. Tameka. These come from topics that are real to our society and things that people are researching about. And so on the screen, you'll see 10 biggest challenges women leaders face and ways to overcome them. There was an article by Succeed Smart, and they listed those 10 biggest challenges. And one of those was a lack of advancement, opportunities. So women in particular have a lack of advancement opportunities. They don't get a chance to be promoted or advanced as much as men do. A lack of flexibility in schedule. As we know, women do a lot of different jobs. They have a lot of different hats that they wear. And being a mom, being a professional, maybe being a person that sits on different boards and things like that, you need some flexibility in your schedule. And so a lot of women find that to be a challenge when their job expects them to follow a very rigid schedule. Another challenge that women have as leaders is a lack of work-life balance. This is something that I think any woman who is a person who takes their work seriously, a person who has a high work ethic, I think we definitely have a challenge with finding work-life balance. We don't, knowing when to turn it off. Some of us, we got a chance to really experience that during COVID, but that's something that women struggle with, knowing when to turn it off and having that balance. Women deal with the lack of recognition. So they don't get recognized. They don't get the accolades that a lot of their male colleagues get. Some other things that they deal with is a lack of company commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We all know, and especially with the things that are happening right now in Senate Bill 83, and then like this new Supreme Court decision that is dealing with affirmative action and educational systems. There's just so much going on. And unfortunately, I truly believe that we've taken several steps back. We've taken several steps back in regards to people of people, underrepresented people being able to be forward, free in many ways. And so we've taken a couple steps back, unfortunately. Another thing that they deal with, women that are managers, they deal with a lack of manager support. So women leaders deal with a lack of support from their bosses. Okay, so for example, there was a study that found that about 13% more likely men who are in leadership as opposed to women, 13% more likely men will receive leadership skills training than women. It's automatically assumed that, and this next one that I'm going to talk about is unconscious bias. Sometimes it's assumed, especially if a woman is a mother, it's assumed that, oh, she probably doesn't want to be promoted, or she probably doesn't want to have other things that she has to do, other commitments in the job, because of the fact that her life is already demanding because she's a mom. That's an unconscious bias that oftentimes happens. A lack of sponsorship. Sponsorship is critically important in any kind of professional space. Sponsorship basically is when you are out of the room and decisions are needing to be made about you. Do you have any people in your life that will actually speak up for you, that will sponsor you, that will be an advocate for you? And oftentimes, women have a lack of sponsorship, and especially women of color, for sure, deal with a lack of sponsorship. And then one last thing that they deal with is, of course, unequal pay. We still know that women, white women in particular, make 80 cents on the dollar, while Black women make 68 cents on the dollar. And that's still a big problem. And then the last thing is imposter syndrome. Women deal with imposter syndrome. Women leaders deal with this. And it's really interesting because as a woman leader, and as a Black woman in particular, whenever you feel as though you are in a space where people don't want you to be there, it makes it so that you have this issue of feeling like you don't belong, or that you're not worthy to be in the space. And so I know for sure, personally, I've dealt with it before. I learned how to move beyond it, but I still, every now and again have those feelings. But definitely women in leadership, they also deal with imposter syndrome. And I'm so happy to say that Judi came back.
I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm glad you were able to come back. Yes. Okay. So one question that I really wanted to ask is about performative support. We just dealt with in Akron the killing of Jalen Walker. We had dealt with, social unrest and other things that the NAACP, I'm sure, had a lot of hand in. What do you think is, first off, I'm sure you've dealt with it, performative support.
Yes.
How do you move beyond performative support and still accomplish the goals that you're set out to accomplish? So, say for instance, you have an organization or a company, they say that they want to do X, Y, and Z for people that are oppressed or whatever the case might be, and they give a lot of lip service. But then when it comes to actually putting those things into action, they just kind of fades away. So how can we move beyond performative support? What can we do to make sure that we can still accomplish the things that we want to accomplish despite?
So I've been very blessed. The individuals or companies that gave support, they did that financially and, individuals came out.
Yeah.
The hard part is to keep the support. Problem is when the dust settles,
Yeah.
people want to go back into their little cubby
Yep.
and to hold them accountable
Right.
for the change that needs to happen in our city.
Yep. Yep.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Mm.
And so to meet and to talk and to say, here's where we need you to continue to keep the pressure. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And that's where we're seeing them kind of go back into their shell of
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's unfortunate. However, we try not to allow them to do that. We try to find, we meaning there's a group of us.
Yeah.
We try to keep finding places and spaces that they can use their sphere of influence to keep some pressure on.
Yeah.
I can tell you there is no question in my mind that our influence, our sphere of support helped to get our mayor elected, that we are continuing to add and lend our voice to issues that impact our city, our chief search. It's unfortunate that where we are with our oversight board is frustrating. And I want to assure the public, don't give up on it. They have to understand that oversight board was created under an administration that didn't want it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to understand that.
Yeah.
So even though we voted it in, it came in under an administration that didn't want it.
Yeah.
It came in with under a leadership that was the best friends of the police chief.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that you're not going to get the kind of oversight board in the beginning that
Right.
we all envisioned.
Right.
But ask the public to be patient as we massage and get it where it needs to be. So it's kind of like the cocoon right now is being formed. And, they've adopted these rules and regulations that, it's like, oh, we're just this little body right now. Okay. It's not where it's going to be, but give it the opportunity to get to where it needs to be.
Right.
So, we still are pushing the envelope, but know that we're not letting any grass grow under our feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we utilize our relationships and keep pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't take people long. But I also, this is where I also compare it to what happens in the Bible.
Okay.
Let's not get it twisted. People are who they are.
Yeah.
You look at what happened in the Bible. Give people 60 years, give them 25 years. They go back and they do the same thing.
Yeah.
So as I teach my Sunday school students, I'm like, bless our hearts. You know, God gave us this and we turned around and gave us 25, 30 years, 60 years, and we went back and did the same thing.
Yeah.
We don't have long memories, right?
Mm.
And so we have to understand that. And we have to understand that we have to push and push and push and then feed that next generation so that they are ready.
Ready to push. Yeah.
Yes, when the next issue happens.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's part of the evolution of life. And we have to be patient and understand that Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Any advice that you have for women leaders, women that are in leadership now or aspiring to be leaders?
Absolutely. Know who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. They've already done that. Yeah. Why you do what you do is just as important as how you do it.
Mm.
There's some people who think that their being everywhere is the thing. It's not. It's not. Leave your mark. Know your purpose. Leadership isn't a position, it's a function of your service.
Wow.
It's not, you know what I mean? It's not.
That's okay. Say that one more time. Leadership is not a position, it's a function of your service.
Right.
Ah, that's so good.
So listen, it's not mine. There are some nuggets that people give me that I'm like, oh man,
Hmm.
you know, I learned from some really, really, really great people what to do and what not to do as a leader. Like what I was telling you about being a servant leader.
Yeah.
I learned a great leader, and I learned this from Dr. Small. Sometimes you got to step on a toe, but you don't want to ruin their shine, right?
Mm.
I love that one because
Mm.
some people, girl, you know, you better pull them people back. They're going way off they're ruining the mission. But you don't want to ruin their shine, but you got to pull them back. Girl, you got to snatch somebody, pull them back, right? But you love their energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's knowing who you are and work from the heart.
Yeah.
Don't work from the head, work from the heart. Some people
Hmm.
do things for the glory and not
Yeah.
the passion. And God will recognize you. You don't have to.
Oh,
You don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that God will recognize you because if you are truly doing it in the spirit of service,
Yes.
you'll get your recognition.
You will. You
Yep,
really will.
you will.
Yeah.
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 Yep. I truly believe that.
Oh, and you know what else? This
Mhm.
is one, and I can't take credit for this one either. One of those women that I value their knowledge base. They said everybody can't be in your front row.
Mm.
There should be some critical women or people that can pull you back and say,
Mhm.
going in the wrong direction. And you should be able to trust that voice.
Yeah,
You can't trust everybody,
that's true.
but there are certain ones in your front row, and there's a limited number of folk.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Wow.
live by.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I call that my executive board of mentors.
Oh, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I call that. I have one mentor, Dr. Angela Neal Barnett.
Absolutely.
Yes, love her. And she has pulled me back on several occasions.
Yes, and you
Several
know that what
occasions.
she's saying is right. She would
Absolutely.
never tell you anything that wasn't right.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And it's funny because when I started on my journey as an entrepreneur, I had a different focus. And I met with Angela and she wanted to see, how things were going with my business. And she said to me, she said, you're not following your purpose. And I said, well, what do you mean I'm not following my purpose? She said, well, you're doing all these things, but you're really not doing what you're meant to do. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, you're Jonah right now. She called me Jonah in the whale. She said, you're Jonah. You're running from what you're supposed to be doing. And she pulled me all the way back and
Wow.
helped me to reframe everything about myself as an entrepreneur.
See,
Mm-hmm.
those are the people that God sends.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And he sends them for a season, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They will always be here, but
Yeah.
he sends them for a season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. 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 So if anybody wants to join the NAACP, how do they go about doing that?
Well, and I apologize. I meant to have that information right here. The Akron branch of the NAACP, and we try to use the acronym, the NAACP, because there's so many younger people today who don't understand what NAACP stands for.
Yeah.
They think we're like the basketball teams
Oh, yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try to say it out now. The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But you can go to our website. You can go to our Facebook page, NAACP Akron, NAACP.org, and you can join us and you can join our membership now. We have a couple events that are coming up. Right now, we have a scholarship luncheon.
Nice.
Yeah, we are very blessed to raise funds. Every other year, we have a scholarship event and we raise money. And that money goes directly into providing scholarships for young people. We raised $30,000 last year, and
Wow.
$30,000 worth of scholarships will be presented
Wow.
here. And believe me, people think, oh, anybody can do that. No, they can't.
Mm-hmm.
The need is great. Our young people need the funding to continue their education. And we're proud to be able to offer the scholarships to students. And so we have that scholarship initiative coming up in June
Yeah.
on our website as well, naacpakron.org. So please, feel free to join us for that event. We have a young woman, a local talent who works for TikTok, who will be a speaker. And we think as a young person, she is a great example of what can be. Left high school in Canton, Ohio, worked for the NFL, and now works for TikTok, making a whole lot of money, and is just a fireball. And again, using her God-given talent to just do great things. And this is just the beginning for her,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just so excited to have her as our speaker. But that's the way to do it. And we have so many opportunities for people to get involved.
Yeah.
Anyone reach us by Akron NAACP at yahoo.com. And yes, we still have a Yahoo account.
Okay.
They can email us and talk to me about getting involved. I'd love to have them. We have another opportunity coming up. We have an AXO competition for young people where they can showcase their talents in the arts. And talk to you because I'm looking for arts.
I would be happy to.
Yeah, in the arts. Humanities, science, biochemistry, and that competition, our local competition, will be at the Civic. And then the winners of that competition will go on to the national competition in Vegas.
Nice.
Had several national winners. Kofi was one of our winners.
Was Kofi B?
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice.
So we're excited about all the things that we have going on. And people don't understand, we are all volunteers. we were blessed to get a little grant to pay a part-time assistant in the office. Thank God for her. And she actually owns her own dance studio.
Yeah, you
But
were telling me about her. Yeah,
yeah,
yes,
during the
yes.
day, she actually doesn't, the kids are in school, so she can help us out during the day.
Mhm.
And then she does her dance studio in the evening. And so thank goodness for her, because she helps me to keep things moving while we go out and try to do the work of the NAACP.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you. This was a great conversation. I appreciate all your nuggets of wisdom that we can be able to share with other ladies as this episode is, being publicized. So once the live session is over today, it'll also be on um, Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify, and so more people will be able to listen to it and glean from your leadership experience. And congratulations! And are you celebrating your 10th anniversary this year?
Yes. Well, and we're grooming new leadership. I don't believe
Okay.
anybody should stay anywhere too long.
Yeah.
I like to groom new leaders, and I help support them as they go on and do even bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, President Hill. It was wonderful to speak with you.
Thank you, Dr. Tameka. And we'll be talking because I need you as a judge.
I will be happy to. I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So everyone, thank you so much for hanging in there with me to finish up this episode. I'm hoping that you gained something from it, that you learned something, and that you are inspired. If you're not already in a leadership position, that you are inspired to become a leader. There's nothing like being able to lead. And like President Hill said, to be able to lead in the essence of service. And so this episode of the Black Beauty Activist podcast is brought to you by my book, Black Hair in a White World. And I am so excited that I've been on book tour with this book now. I'm actually tomorrow morning, I'll be at Kenyon College speaking with the women there about Black beauty and culture. And if your organization would like to host me for a critical conversation on Black beauty and culture, please connect with me. My assistant would be happy to take your information. You can reach her at assistant@drtamekaellington.com. And I just want to say thank you again for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a comment. Please like it on YouTube, share it with those in your circle who will benefit. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Black Beauty Activists podcast. And as I always say, please remember that on the other side of fear is your beautiful confidence. Have a wonderful night, everybody.